Ambassador Emma Thompson walked into the massive council building on the space station. The ceiling stretched so high she could barely see the top, and thousands of alien delegates filled seats that floated in the air around her. She had done this same walk every week for 10 years, always with the same nervous smile on her face. "Honorable members of the Galactic Council," she said into her small microphone, her voice echoing through the enormous room. "Earth would like to ask permission to build a small mining station near the Vega star system. We promise to follow all the rules and pay all the required fees." The tall, thin Viridian delegate didn't even look at her when he spoke. His crystal-like skin made clicking sounds as he moved. "Humans may build their little mine, but you will give us 60% of everything you find. And you will pay extra taxes for using space that belongs to civilized species." Emma's hands shook slightly, but she kept smiling. "Thank you so much for your kindness. Earth is very grateful for this opportunity." Inside she wanted to scream. 60% was robbery and everyone in the room knew it. But this was how things worked. Humans were the new kids in the galaxy, and they had to prove they could behave nicely if they wanted to survive. She remembered her first day as Earth's ambassador. Her boss had pulled her aside and given her simple instructions. Smile, bow, say thank you, and never let them see you angry. They think we're just smart animals from a dangerous planet. Let them keep thinking that. 3,000 light-years away, Captain James Mitchell stood on the bridge of his patrol ship, watching something that made his blood boil. A human cargo ship was floating dead in space, surrounded by 6 alien warships. The cargo ship's engines were damaged and they couldn't move. "Captain," said Lieutenant Rebecca Ward, his second in command, "the Aquatic Union ships are demanding the humans pay a protection fee before they'll let them continue. That's the 4th time this month." James watched the alien ships circle the helpless cargo vessel like sharks around a wounded fish. The cargo ship was carrying medical supplies to human colonies on the outer rim. People would die if those supplies didn't arrive on time. "Sir," Rebecca said quietly, "we could take all 6 of those ships without breaking a sweat. Our weapons are charged and ready." James knew she was right. His ship was built for war, even though they called it a patrol vessel to make the aliens feel safer. The human crew had trained their entire lives to fight in conditions that would kill most other species instantly. But his orders were clear. "Stand down, Lieutenant. We're peacekeepers, not warriors. Remember?" The words tasted like poison in his mouth. For 15 years he had followed orders to be nice, to be polite, to never show the galaxy what humans could really do when they stopped playing games. Every time alien ships bullied human traders, every time they demanded tribute from Earth colonies, every time they treated his people like trained pets, he had to smile and do nothing. Back on the space station, Emma was sitting in a small room with 3 other human diplomats. They were all tired, all frustrated, but they couldn't show it where the aliens might see. "The mining rights came through," Emma told them, "but the terms keep getting worse. They're treating us like slaves with fancy titles." David Parker, the trade representative, shook his head. "It's the same everywhere. They take our goods, demand our services, and act like they're doing us a favor by letting us exist in their galaxy." "The worst part," said Helen Foster, the military liaison, "is that they think we're weak because we follow their rules. They have no idea what we're really capable of." Emma nodded. She had read the classified reports from Earth's military. Humans weren't just from a dangerous planet, they were apex predators who had crawled to the top of the food chain on a world that tried to kill everything that lived on it. Their reflexes were faster, their endurance was greater, and their ability to fight in hostile environments was unmatched by any known species. But the galaxy didn't know that. They saw the polite smiles, the diplomatic compromises, the careful way humans always backed down from confrontations. They thought civilization had made humans soft. "How long do we keep this up?" Helen asked quietly. Emma looked out the window at the vast expanse of space. Somewhere out there, human colonies were struggling to survive while paying crushing taxes to alien governments. Human ships were being robbed by pirates who knew Earth wouldn't fight back. Human families were working dangerous jobs on hostile worlds because that was the only work the galaxy would give them. "As long as it takes," she said finally. "Earth's survival depends on the galaxy thinking we're harmless. The moment they realize what we really are, this careful peace we've built will collapse." But even as she said it, Emma wondered how long they could keep pretending. Every day the demands grew heavier. Every week the insults became more obvious. Every month, it became harder to explain to the human colonies why they had to keep bowing to species that saw them as nothing more than useful animals. In deep space, Captain James Mitchell received another distress call from a human ship under attack. He gave the same orders he always gave. monitor the situation, file a report, do nothing that might be seen as aggressive. But as he watched another human crew suffer in silence, James couldn't shake the feeling that this careful game of pretending to be weak was going to end badly. And when it did, the galaxy was going to discover that the most dangerous predators were often the ones who had been polite enough to ask permission before showing their teeth. The mask was holding but barely, and cracks were starting to show. The emergency alert came at 3 a.m. Earth time. Ambassador Emma Thompson was pulled from her sleep by the urgent buzzing of her communicator. The voice on the other end was shaking. Ambassador, we've lost contact with New Haven Colony. Complete communications blackout as of 2 hours ago. Emma sat up in her bed, suddenly wide awake. New Haven was one of Earth's largest colonies, home to nearly 2 million people. Families, children, farmers who grew food for a dozen other human settlements. What's the last message we received? She asked, already reaching for her clothes. A distress signal. Very brief. Something about ships in orbit, then nothing. By the time Emma reached the emergency command center, the worst fears were confirmed. Long-range sensors showed New Haven cities dark and silent. No life signs. No communication signals. Nothing. Captain James Mitchell received the orders 6 hours later while patrolling near the outer rim. His mission was simple: get to New Haven, find out what happened, and report back. But as his ship dropped out of hyperspace near the colony, James knew he was looking at a massacre. The planet's surface was scarred with blast marks. Cities that had housed millions were now nothing but smoking craters. The orbital stations that protected the colony were twisted metal floating in space. Captain, Lieutenant Rebecca Ward said quietly, I'm reading massive energy signatures in the debris. These weapon patterns, they're not from pirates or raiders. James studied the data on his screen. The energy signatures were too clean, too precise. This wasn't random violence. This was systematic destruction carried out by military forces with advanced technology. Run a full spectrum analysis on those weapon traces, he ordered. I want to know exactly who did this. The results came back within an hour, and they made James's blood run cold. Crystalline energy weapons from the Viridian fleet. Biotoxins that matched Aquatic Union military specifications. Nanoswarm residue that could only come from Nexus collective war machines. The 3 most powerful species in the galaxy had worked together to murder 2 million human civilians. Rebecca looked at the data with growing anger. Sir, this wasn't a raid or an accident. This was planned. Coordinated. They wanted to send Earth a message. James stared out at the dead planet where children had been playing just days ago. For 15 years he had followed orders to be peaceful, to be diplomatic, to never show the galaxy what humans could really do. Now he was looking at what that peaceful approach had cost them. Collect every piece of evidence, he said quietly. Document everything. Earth needs to see this. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was packed with delegates from across the galaxy. Emma Thompson stood at the speaker's podium, but this time her usual diplomatic smile was nowhere to be seen. Her face was pale but determined as she activated the holographic display. New Haven Colony, she announced, population 1.9 million. Destroyed 3 days ago. The images filled the chamber. Burned cities, dead orbital stations, the twisted wreckage of what had once been a thriving human settlement. Some of the alien delegates looked uncomfortable, but most seemed unmoved. The evidence is clear, Emma continued. This attack was carried out by a coordinated strike force using Viridian, Aquatic Union, and Nexus collective military hardware. This wasn't pirates or raiders. This was murder. The Viridian delegate's crystalline form clicked as he stood. Ambassador Thompson, these are serious accusations. Do you have proof that any civilized species would target human settlements? Emma activated another display showing the weapon signatures, the energy patterns, the biotoxin traces. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable. Here is your proof, she said. The chamber fell silent for a long moment. Then the Aquatic Union representative spoke, his voice carrying through the water-filled communication system. Even if these readings are accurate, they prove nothing. Perhaps human colonists found abandoned military equipment and used it against each other. Humans are known to be violent after all. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Emma felt her hands clench into fists, but she forced herself to remain calm. The Galactic Council will investigate these claims, announced the chamber's senior delegate, a floating creature from the core worlds. In the meantime, it's clear that humanity cannot adequately protect its own colonies. Emma's heart sank as she realized where this was heading. Therefore, the delegate continued, for the safety of all human settlements, The Council recommends that Earth surrender all military vessels and weapons to Council oversight. Clearly, human defensive capabilities are insufficient. The vote was swift and brutal. 847 species voted in favor. Only 3 abstained. None voted against. Emma stood in shock as the chamber erupted in satisfied chatter. They had just witnessed evidence of the mass murder of human civilians, and their response was to strip Earth of any ability to defend itself. Captain James Mitchell received the news while still orbiting the dead colony. His communications officer, David Parker, looked up from his console with barely controlled rage. "Sir, Earth Command is ordering all human military vessels to report to Council stations for immediate disarmament. All weapon systems are to be deactivated and turned over to alien control." James stared out at New Haven's lifeless surface. 2 million people had died because Earth tried to play by the galaxy's rules. Now those same rules demanded that humans surrender their only means of protection. "Sir?" David asked. "What are your orders?" For 15 years, James Mitchell had been the perfect example of a civilized human officer. Polite, diplomatic, always following orders to avoid conflict at any cost. But as he looked at the evidence of what happened when humans trusted the galaxy to treat them fairly, something fundamental shifted inside him. "Send a message to Admiral Helen Foster at Earth Command," he said quietly. "Tell her Captain Mitchell recommends we stop playing by their rules." The mask of civilized diplomacy was finally cracking, and underneath it, something much more dangerous was beginning to stir. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. Every alien delegate sat perfectly still as Ambassador Emma Thompson walked to the speaker's platform. But this time, everything about her was different. Gone was the formal diplomatic uniform she had worn for 10 years. Instead, she wore a simple black military outfit with Earth symbols clearly visible. Her usual apologetic smile had vanished completely, replaced by something cold and frightening. The other humans with her were also dressed in military uniforms. Captain James Mitchell stood tall and straight, his hand resting casually on his weapon. Admiral Helen Foster's eyes swept across the chamber like a predator studying prey. Colonel Thomas Wright looked like he was remembering every insult, every demand, every moment of forced politeness from the past 15 years. "Honorable delegates," Emma began, but her voice carried none of its usual respect. Several alien representatives actually moved back in their seats. "For 30 years, humanity has worked very hard to be good members of this galactic community." She paused, letting her words sink in. The silence in the chamber was complete. "We paid your taxes without complaint, even when they were clearly meant to rob us. We followed your laws even when they were designed to keep us weak. We smiled politely while you treated us like trained animals performing tricks for your entertainment." The Viridian delegate began to make clicking sounds of protest, but Emma's voice cut through the noise like a knife. "You made one very serious mistake. You thought our politeness meant we were weak. You thought because we didn't fight back we couldn't fight back. You thought civilization had somehow made us soft." She activated a holographic display showing the destroyed remains of New Haven Colony. 2 million of our people are dead because we trusted you. Because we believed that being reasonable and diplomatic would keep our families safe. We were wrong." The chamber erupted in nervous chatter, but Emma raised her hand and the room fell silent again. There was something in her gesture that made even the largest alien delegates suddenly feel very small. "You want to know what we really are? You want to see what 30 years of holding back has been hiding?" Emma's smile was nothing like the diplomatic expressions she had worn before. It was the smile of something that had just decided to stop pretending to be harmless. "Earth formally withdraws from all Galactic Council treaties, effective immediately. All trade agreements are cancelled. All diplomatic relations are suspended. All human ambassadors are being recalled to Earth." The shock in the chamber was visible. Species that had grown rich from human labor and resources suddenly realized their easy source of income was disappearing. "But more importantly," Emma continued, "all restrictions on human military operations are now lifted. For 3 decades we've been playing by your rules. Now you get to learn what happens when we play by ours." 3,000 light-years away, Admiral Helen Foster sat in Earth's military command center, reading orders that had been written 30 years ago but sealed until this moment. The authorization codes she was about to transmit had never been used before. "Ma'am," her aide asked nervously, "are you sure about this?" Helen looked at the reports from New Haven Colony one more time. Pictures of children's playgrounds turned to glass by alien weapons. Hospitals melted by military-grade energy beams. Families who had trusted Earth's diplomatic protection, now nothing but shadows on destroyed walls. Send the activation codes to all human military units, she said quietly. Authorization level black. Rules of engagement, unrestricted. Mission parameters, show them what Deathworlders really do when we stop being polite. Captain James Mitchell received his new orders while the first Viridian punishment fleet was already moving toward the Sol system. He read the message twice, then looked up at his crew with the first real smile he had worn in 15 years. Attention all hands, he announced over the ship's communication system. We have new orders from Earth Command. As of right now, we are no longer peacekeepers. We are no longer diplomats. We are no longer playing nice. Lieutenant Rebecca Ward looked at her captain with growing excitement. Sir, what are our new mission parameters? James looked out at the approaching alien fleet. Ships that had been built to intimidate primitive species, crewed by beings who had never fought anything more dangerous than poorly armed pirates. They were about to meet humans who had been holding back their true nature for 3 decades. Our mission is simple, Lieutenant. Show them why they should have been afraid of us all along. On colony worlds across human space, military commanders were opening similar sealed orders. Colonel Thomas Wright stood before his Marines on Kepler Prime, looking at soldiers who had spent their entire careers being told to avoid conflict, to de-escalate situations, to never let the galaxy see what human warriors could really do. Listen up, he told them. For 15 years, you've been the best-behaved military in the galaxy. You've followed every rule, obeyed every regulation, and shown nothing but professional restraint in the face of constant insults and threats. The Marines stood at attention, but Thomas could see the hunger in their eyes. They were apex predators who had been forced to act like house pets for far too long. Those days are over. The aliens wanted to see what we really are when we stopped pretending to be civilized. They murdered 2 million of our people to make their point. Thomas's voice grew harder. Now we're going to make ours. Back in the council chamber, Emma Thompson finished her speech with words that would be remembered across the galaxy for centuries to come. You had 30 years to learn that the most dangerous species are often the ones polite enough to ask permission first. You chose not to learn that lesson. She turned to leave, then stopped and looked back at the terrified delegates one final time. Class is now in session. The Viridian War fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system expecting to find frightened humans ready to surrender. Admiral Zektar had brought 47 warships, more than enough firepower to destroy any human resistance. His orders were simple: occupy Earth and arrest the rebel leadership. Sir, his tactical officer reported, we're detecting only one human ship. It appears to be waiting for us near the asteroid belt. Admiral Zektar's crystalline form flickered with amusement. One ship. Perhaps they wished to surrender without a fight. That one ship was Captain James Mitchell's vessel, the Retribution. James stood on his bridge watching the massive alien fleet approach. His crew of 200 humans was outnumbered by more than 10,000 enemy soldiers, but none of them looked worried. Captain, Lieutenant Rebecca Ward said, checking her weapons display, they're maintaining standard battle formation. Tight formation, ships close together for mutual protection. James smiled. After 15 years of following diplomatic rules, he was finally free to fight the way humans were meant to fight. They still think this is going to be a civilized battle between civilized species. Show them how wrong they are. The Retribution didn't charge straight at the enemy fleet like other species would. Instead, it dove into the asteroid belt, disappearing among the floating rocks and debris. The Viridian ships followed, trying to maintain their neat formation. That was their first mistake. All stop, James ordered. Silent running. Let them come to us. The human ship powered down all non-essential systems and drifted like another piece of space debris. The Viridians spread out, searching for their single opponent among thousands of asteroids. Contact, Rebecca whispered. 3 enemy ships, moving in formation, 2 kilometers off our starboard side. James watched the alien vessels pass by. They were scanning carefully, but they were looking for a ship that was running and hiding, not one that was hunting them. Fire, he said quietly. The Retribution exploded into action. Weapons that had been hidden behind asteroid cover opened up at point-blank range. The first Viridian ship was destroyed before it even knew it was under attack. The second managed to get its shields up but was crippled by human weapons that hit far harder than anything in their database. The third tried to run but found itself trapped between the human ship and a massive asteroid. 3 down, Rebecca reported with satisfaction. 44 to go. This was how humans really fought. Not in neat lines with honor and rules, but like the apex predators they truly were. They used the environment, they struck from ambush, they turned the enemy's expectations against them. The Viridian fleet tried to adapt, but they were fighting in an environment that would kill most alien species instantly. The asteroid belt was full of radiation, gravitational anomalies, and debris moving at deadly speeds. The humans navigated it like they were born there. "Sir," the Viridian tactical officer reported to Admiral Zektar, "we've lost 12 ships. The human vessel keeps disappearing and reappearing. They're using the asteroids for cover." Admiral Zektar was learning a hard lesson about Deathworld species. Concentrate all fire on their position when they attack next. But when the retribution struck again, it wasn't where they expected. James had used the asteroid's gravity to slingshot his ship around behind the enemy formation. By the time the Viridians realized where the attack was coming from, 8 more of their ships were already burning wrecks. Meanwhile, on the colony world of Kepler Prime, Colonel Thomas Wright was teaching the Aquatic Union Occupation Force their own lesson about humans. The alien soldiers had expected to face scared colonists with basic weapons. Instead, they found themselves fighting creatures that seemed to enjoy the planet's toxic atmosphere. "Colonel," reported Sergeant Mary Collins over the radio, "enemy forces are retreating from Sector 7. They can't handle the atmospheric conditions for more than 20 minutes. Thomas smiled grimly. Kepler Prime's air was poisonous to most species, but humans had been breathing worse on their home planet for millions of years. The Aquatic Union soldiers needed environmental suits just to survive, while the human Marines fought in simple breathing masks. "Press the attack," Thomas ordered. "Show them what happens when Deathworlders stop holding back." The battle wasn't really a battle at all. It was a demonstration of what apex predators could do when they stopped pretending to be civilized. The human soldiers moved through environments that paralyzed their enemies with fear. They fought in radiation levels that would cook alien nervous systems. They used their own planet's hostile conditions as weapons. Back in space, Admiral Zektar was facing the reality of what his species had awakened. Half his fleet was gone, destroyed by a single human ship that fought like nothing in their military manuals. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "Earth Command is transmitting a message." The hologram that appeared showed Captain James Mitchell standing calmly on his bridge. Behind him, Zektar could see human crew members working efficiently at their stations, showing no signs of stress despite being outnumbered 20 to 1. "Admiral Zektar," James said politely, "I'm offering you one chance to withdraw your remaining ships and leave this system. This is not a negotiation." Zektar's crystalline form blazed with anger. "Human, you are outnumbered. Surrender now and your death will be quick." James's expression didn't change. "Admiral, for 30 years my species has been polite, diplomatic, and peaceful. You mistook that for weakness. You thought we were tame." His smile was cold and predatory. "You were wrong." The retribution struck again, this time ramming directly through a Viridian cruiser while its shields were down. The human ship's reinforced hull, built to withstand the crushing pressure of Earth's deep oceans, tore through alien armor like paper. "Withdraw!" Admiral Zektar screamed to his remaining ships. "All vessels retreat to hyperspace immediately." But as the surviving Viridian ships tried to escape, they found human vessels appearing from all directions. Ships that had been hiding in the asteroid belt, powered down and waiting. The single ship had been bait, and they had taken it completely. The galaxy was about to learn that when humans stopped being polite, they became something much more dangerous than anyone had imagined. 6 months after the war began, the Galactic Council chambers looked very different. Where alien delegates once lounged casually in their floating seats, now they sat stiff and nervous. Their eyes darted constantly toward the entrance, waiting for the humans to arrive. The great doors opened and Ambassador Emma Thompson walked in. But she was no longer alone or apologetic. Captain James Mitchell walked beside her, his uniform bearing new decorations that every species in the galaxy had learned to fear. Admiral Helen Foster followed, her presence making even the largest alien delegates seem small. Colonel Thomas Wright brought up the rear, and the rumors about what his Marines had done on occupied worlds had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The chamber fell completely silent. Not the respectful quiet of a formal meeting, but the terrified silence of prey animals trying not to attract a predator's attention. Emma took her place at the speaker's platform. For 30 years she had stood in this same spot, smiling apologetically and asking permission for humanity's basic needs. Those days were over. "Honorable delegates," she began, though her tone made it clear she found nothing honorable about most of them. "Humanity is ready to resume our place in galactic society. On our terms." The Viridian delegate tried to speak, his crystalline form making weak clicking sounds. "Ambassador Thompson, The Council wishes to express our regret for any misunderstandings that may have occurred. Emma's cold stare silenced him instantly. There were no misunderstandings, Delegate. You ordered the murder of 2 million human civilians to prove you could. The question is whether you've learned anything from what happened next. Every being in the chamber knew what had happened next. The Viridian Punishment Fleet had arrived at Earth with 47 warships. 3 ships had limped home, their crews babbling about humans who fought like demons in the asteroid belts. Admiral Zektar had been found in his escape pod, his mind broken by what he had witnessed. The Aquatic Union had fared even worse. Their occupation forces on human worlds had simply vanished. Search teams found their equipment neatly stacked in empty camps, but no bodies, no signs of battle, no trace of what had happened to thousands of soldiers. The only clue was security footage showing human marines moving through toxic environments like they were taking a pleasant walk. The motion before the Council, announced the Chamber's AI, is to restore Earth's full sovereignty and territorial rights. Emma didn't need to say anything threatening. She didn't need to make demands or ultimatums. Everyone in the chamber had seen the reports. Human ships didn't just win battles, they ended wars. Human soldiers didn't just fight, they haunted enemy nightmares for generations. The Nexus Collective Delegate, speaking through its hive mind translator, whispered, "All in favor?" Every single hand, claw, tentacle, and appendage in the chamber shot up immediately. The vote was unanimous. Nobody wanted to be the species that voted against humanity a second time. The motion passes, the AI announced unnecessarily. Emma nodded once. Humanity accepts. But understand this clearly, we tried your way first. We tried diplomacy, compromise, and civilized behavior for 30 years. We paid your taxes, followed your laws, and smiled politely while you treated us like performing animals. She let her gaze sweep across the assembly, and several delegates actually trembled. You mistook our restraint for weakness. You thought because we asked nicely we couldn't take what we needed. You were wrong. Captain James Mitchell stepped forward slightly. The movement was casual, but every alien in the chamber noticed it. His ship, the Retribution, had become a legend of terror across the galaxy. Pirates now fled at the first sign of human patrol vessels. From now on, Emma continued, human trade ships will travel wherever they wish, when they wish, carrying whatever cargo they choose. Human colonies will be established on any worlds we find suitable. Human military vessels will patrol any space we consider part of our territory. The chamber was so quiet that the life support system seemed loud. Any species that interferes with human activities will discover what we were really holding back during those 30 years of being polite. The Aquatic Union's representative tried to speak through his water-filled communication system. Ambassador, surely we can reach some accommodation? Emma's smile was nothing like the diplomatic expressions she had worn for 3 decades. We did reach an accommodation. You murdered 2 million of our people to show us how much you valued it. Admiral Helen Foster stepped forward and activated a holographic display. It showed star maps with human territory clearly marked. The boundaries had expanded dramatically, covering systems that other species had considered their exclusive domains. These are humanity's new territorial claims, Helen announced calmly. Any ships entering these systems without permission will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. The territorial claims covered some of the galaxy's most valuable mining systems and trade routes. Species that had grown rich exploiting human labor suddenly realized they were about to become very poor very quickly. This is outrageous, squeaked a delegate from the Rim Worlds Coalition. You can't simply claim sovereign territory based on military conquest. The chamber fell silent again. Every being present realized the small delegate had just made a terrible mistake. Emma turned her cold gaze on the speaker. Can't we? You seem to forget that every piece of territory in this galaxy was claimed through military conquest at some point. The difference is that we're honest about it. She paused, letting the implications sink in. Besides, we're not conquering anything. We're simply no longer asking permission to exist in our own galaxy. Colonel Thomas Wright had remained silent throughout the session, but now he spoke for the first time. His voice was quiet, almost gentle, which somehow made his words more terrifying. The galaxy spent 30 years teaching us that being polite gets your people killed. Thank you for the lesson. We won't forget it. As the human delegation prepared to leave, Emma turned back to the assembly one final time. We gave diplomacy a chance. We gave civilization a chance. We gave your rules a chance. Her smile was predatory and cold. Now you get to live with the consequences of teaching apex predators that nice guys finish last. The new galactic order had begun, and humanity was no longer asking for permission.